Today, we're diving deep into a transformative journey that holds the power to reshape your entire existence. So let's embark on a journey of self-discovery, transformation, and liberation. Now, when people find themselves at the crossroads of change, it's like they're standing on the edge of a vast ocean, ready to overcome the greatest obstacle, themselves. This is the moment when true creation begins. And let me tell you, my friends, my definition of creation is when you forget about yourself. That's when you step into the realm of true freedom. Meditation, as I often say, is about becoming familiar with yourself. And let's be real, it's not about avoiding the negative. In fact, it's about facing it head on because, believe it or not, 95% of who you are is entangled with those aspects you might consider negative. It's time to dismantle that old personality, to denature it. This means confronting the emotional cravings deeply rooted in the body. Picture this, it's 8 o'clock in the morning and you're engaging in your meditation practice. Meanwhile, your body is throwing a tantrum because, well, it's off schedule. It's trying to find something mapped in the brain, some past experience that can trigger a familiar emotion like anger. Now here's the game changer, awareness. Once you become aware of this process, you're in the driver's seat. You're consciously choosing not to go unconscious again. But let me tell you, it takes an incredible amount of awareness, a substantial dose of consciousness. And here's the kicker. You can't have consciousness without energy. It's a package deal. So you've got to raise your energy to get to that elevated state. Otherwise, you risk being consumed by the same old patterns, returning back to square one. Now, becoming familiar with those unconscious thoughts is the key. Imagine a scenario where those thoughts never slip by your awareness. That's when you catch yourself, my friends. And guess what? Research shows that you can get better at this. You can actually sense the thought before it comes knocking on your mental door. It's like playing a game of chess with your own mind. And that's when the magic begins. You start firing and wiring new thoughts. You ask yourself, who am I going to be when I open my eyes? How am I going to make a difference in the world today? How am I going to love, give, serve, and contribute? It's an act of closing your eyes, visualizing, and rehearsing what you're going to do. Why? Because your brain doesn't know the difference. It doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. So close your eyes, disconnect from the external chaos, reduce sensory input, diminish the distractions, play some soft music, use earplugs, do whatever it takes. Now, as you sit down, devoid of tasting, smelling, feeling, your brain waves start to change. You transition from the beta brain wave pattern, where you're acutely aware of your body in space and time, to the alpha state. This is where your inner world becomes more real than the outer world. Your brain waves slow down and you start creating, dreaming, pretending. Now, if you tell your body to sit still for an hour, it might rebel. It might scream about exploding bladders and the urgent need for coffee. But you, my friend, declare war on those programmed responses. You sit through it, and when you start your day after such a battle, you emerge kinder, more loving, less judgmental, and infinitely more present. Why? Because you've mastered the present moment. You're no longer a prisoner of the predictable future or the familiar past. You're mastering time itself. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. If all your attention is in the present moment, you've got an abundance of energy to unleash upon the world. You see, when someone is present with you, they're paying attention. And when they're not present, they're not paying attention. The act of becoming more present means channeling a tremendous amount of energy into the now, reclaiming your power from external influences. Now, out of the infinite places to direct your attention, let's place it on your heart. Your attention is your energy, and we want this center to bloom. We are, my friends, reality-producing machines. Every human being is either living in a state of creation or survival. Creation is about growth, expansion, health, and emotions like love and joy. Survival, on the other hand, is living in stress, knocking your body out of balance. The trouble is, with our magnificent brains, we can trigger the stress response just by thought alone. We do it all day long, and over time, that continuous imbalance becomes our new balance. We head towards contraction, disease, feeling separate, and becoming more self-serving. Those survival chemicals are addictive, and breaking through this cycle is a journey. It requires discomfort, but the moment your body is liberated, you feel an expansion. It's the truest form of self-love, joy, and the release of trapped energy, transforming anger into joy, hatred into love. It's the same energy with a different spin. Let's take a moment to really dive into the idea of transformational change. It's crucial to understand that this isn't something someone else can do for you, and it's definitely not like waving a magic wand. It requires your willingness to step into discomfort as you break free from the patterns that hold you back. Imagine this process as a journey where you're peeling away layers of old habits and thoughts. It might not always be easy. In fact, it might be downright uncomfortable. But here's the thing. In that discomfort lies the key to liberating your energy and experiencing a profound expansion. It's like setting free a butterfly that's been confined for too long. Now let's keep it simple. Picture this, you saying to yourself, "I love myself because I went further than I thought I could go." It's a powerful acknowledgement of your own strength and growth. This isn't about comparing yourself to others or meeting external expectations. It's about surpassing your own limits, going beyond what you once believed possible. When you decide to change something profound in your personality, your thoughts, actions, and feelings, it's not just a switch in your mind. It goes much deeper. It's like rewiring your brain, adjusting your internal circuits, and even tweaking the very chemistry that runs through your veins. Yes, we're talking about a biological, neurological, and quantum transformation. Let's break it down. Your neurology, which is like the wiring system of your brain, gets a makeover. It's not just about thinking differently, it's about physically restructuring the pathways in your brain. Imagine it like rerouting a river. You're changing the course, and with time, it forms a new, more beneficial path. Now think of your circuitry as the intricate connections between different parts of your being. Changing your thoughts and actions doesn't just affect your mind, it influences the way every part of you interacts. It's like tuning an orchestra to create a harmonious symphony within. Consider your chemistry, the substances that make your body work. When you alter your thoughts and actions, you're not just tweaking your mental state, you're creating a chemical shift. It's like changing the ingredients in a recipe. The outcome is different, and in this case, it's a recipe for a healthier, more vibrant you. And then there's gene expression. Yes, the very instructions that guide your body's functions. Changing your thoughts and actions isn't just a surface-level adjustment. It's like updating the software that runs the show. You're influencing the way your genes manifest themselves in your physical existence. Remember, change your energy, change your life. You have the power to create your reality, to shape your destiny. Dive deep into your inner world, become the master of your thoughts, and watch as your life transforms before your eyes. So I think that when you get to those greater levels of love and you've moved past victimization or importance or control or need to be in power or whatever it is, that when you're at a different consciousness and it's selfless, you get a selfless reflection. And that selfless reflection is going to be a consciousness that doesn't necessarily live in three-dimensional reality. Because once energy makes it here, you're no longer bound to the three-dimensional reality. You're connected to a field. So vibrational match, all of a sudden your energy's at that point, and there's a door. And now you're going to get somebody who's going to, in your state of emotional freedom, in your state of your bliss or ecstasy or whatever it is, there's a perfect opportunity for a being that's vibrating at a similar frequency to begin to influence a person's future. But by the same means, if you can't get to that point and you're stuck, Well, then there are beings that love to feed off emotions and feed off energy. And I've seen those too, because when a person finally gets beyond their suffering or whatever, they no longer can host on that person because they're no longer that emotion, that energy any longer. So then all of a sudden the person experiences a tremendous amount of freedom as well. And yeah, of course, now they're setting themselves up for something else. What I do know, though, is that our intention really is to connect to the divine. Our intention is to become divine. Our intention is to open our hearts and trust again, to love again. Our intention is to teach our bodies emotionally what our future could feel like, to trade guilt and shame and resentment and jealousy and envy and competition for love. And we practice that in our week-long events. And once this center begins to open up, we're after coherence. So if you have a coherent heart and you're able to manage that and sustain the heart coherence, the field around your body begins to expand up to 3 meters wide. And that frequency, that coherent frequency, is like a Wi-Fi signal. You got a signal now. And at the same time, once energy makes it to the heart and it goes to the brain, and you teach a person how to create a coherent brain and be able to suppress the mechanism of the thinking neocortex, the memory bank of the known self, teach a person how to operate from their limbic brain and tune that pineal gland into frequency and allow that pineal gland to lock into a frequency. Now you have a Wi-Fi signal as well, and it can read information. And these beings, I was doing this event in Florida, in Amelia Island. It was an advanced event, advanced follow-up. And this is people that have done advanced workshops. And the event was called Dream Time, that we're up from 11 at night till 8 in the morning for the mystical. And if you don't want to do the mystical, don't come. But I'm going to be messing with your sleep. And I stay up the entire night. I'm watching the entire audience. And we're keeping them between worlds, between wakefulness and sleep in that theta realm. And many people have very profound transcendental experiences while we're doing it. And I was trying to think of a way to explain this to the audience. And I had just finished the morning. I hadn't done my meditation. So I went into my room, I sat up, I did my meditation, and then I laid down. And when I laid down, all of a sudden, I see this beautiful fractal pattern with my eyes closed in the room. And the moment I see that fractal pattern, I know that that's order. That's information, a packet, a standing wave of information, and I sense it. I see it with my eyes closed, and then it unfolds like it rolls out on this beautiful being standing right next to me, and I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, and I say, oh shit, like holy, like whoa, and I hear it laugh. And it sounds like a symphony, like a harmony. In fifth dimensional creation, you are not going anywhere to get anything. Fifth dimensional creation has nothing to do with going anywhere to get anything. Because if you combine a clear intention, a coherent thought, coherent brainwave pattern with a coherent heart moving into that elevated emotion, thoughts are electric and feelings are magnetic. The magnetism of this center becomes the energy. The intention is carried on that energy. And now you are broadcasting a new signature into the quantum field. Now, if it's done properly and you understand the mechanics in fifth dimensional creation, you are not going anywhere to get anything. You are actually collapsing space and time. And you are drawing the experience to you. You are the vortex. Because when there's a vibrational match between your energy and that potential that exists in the quantum field by tuning a radio dial, when you lock into that frequency, if you keep revisiting that energetic signature over again every single day, then you don't have to go anywhere and get it. The new job finds you. The new house actually finds you. The new relationship finds you because you are the vortex that's drawing the experience to you. My definition of creation is when I forget about me. I become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time. I become pure consciousness. And the moment I reach that elegant moment of the generous present moment, all possibilities in the quantum field exist truly when our brain and body are in the present moment. Getting there is the work. So then, most people then create reality from what we call three-dimensional creation. Now, when you teach people how to take their attention off of matter, off of objects, off of a particle, and sense energy and sense space and pay attention to nothing, the moment they begin to open their focus, all of a sudden their brain waves begin to change from beta to alpha. But not only just alpha, where the imaginary inner world starts to become more real, but very coherent brainwave patterns in alpha. So when you're under stress, you're trying to control that person, that thing that you're experiencing, your attention is shifting from one thing to the next. Turns out that each one of those things has a neurological network in the brain assigned to it because we've experienced it. So as you try to control all these things and your attention is shifting, you measure the brain, there's no coherency. The brain is very incoherent. Why is it important to have coherency? Well, because the moment you open your focus and the brain begins to acclimate, different compartments of the brain begin to unify. They begin to synchronize, and what syncs in the brain links in the brain. So when your brain is coherent, you're coherent. When your brain is incoherent, you are incoherent. The person, the maverick who's willing to step out into the unknown, that unknown is the perfect place to create from, because only in the unknown can you create something new. And if you and I can become comfortable in that unknown place, then the best way to predict the future is to create it from that unknown place. Now, when people start crossing the river of change from the old self to the new self, because they're no longer thinking, acting, and feeling in the same way, there is literally a biological, a neurological, a genetic, a chemical death of the old self. And this dark night of the soul, this unfamiliar place, is the true value, the true step towards developing a new self. So then if we're leaving the old and we are creating the new, then the next most important question is, well, if I'm going to create a new self, what thoughts do I want to think? What behaviors can I plan? And as you begin to image and rehearse a new way of being, you are changing your brain and body neurologically and biologically. That's the neuroscientific model of mental rehearsal. And as we begin to remind ourselves who we no longer want to be, and we remind ourselves every day of who we do want to be, there'll come a moment where we begin to silence the circuits in our brain that are connected to the old self and inhibit the chemicals that reaffirm the same identity, and then begin to fire and wire new circuits in our brain that begins to install the neurological hardware. The knowledge creates awareness. Awareness creates consciousness. Consciousness and energy are connected. So there's a change in energy globally going on with the world. Now that knowledge and that change of energy has effects on paradigms that are no longer a vibrational match with that new level of consciousness. This is the time we've been waiting for. This is where it's happening in the Milky Way. This is happening here because there's a true coming of a new consciousness. It's not one person that's coming. It's a collective consciousness that's emerging. If you look around the world right now, whether you're looking at the economic model or the political model, or even certain aspects of the religious model, the environment, the medical model, there's several different parts of our culture that's beginning to collapse. If you study human nature historically, we always wait for crisis or trauma or disease or diagnosis, both as an individual and as a culture, before we decide to change. If you look at this and you study it in history, it's a sign that something new has to be born. As the old model of reality begins to change, something else has to replace it. So we have two ways that we actually face crisis. We can either face crisis in a state of emergency, which in the beginning of a crisis is healthy, or we can face crisis in a state of creativity and innovation. If you're addressing a financial crisis or a crisis in a culture and everybody is selfish and everybody's living by those emotions, then they're pushing their way to get to the head of the line. They're competing. They're forcing outcomes. They're using very primitive systems to try to take care of themselves. We know from the physiology of the brain that most of the blood supply goes to the hindbrain and away from the forebrain. Those chemicals create a gap between the way things appear in our life and the way things really are. In other words, we're viewing reality in an altered state. We don't see possibility. We feel separate from each other. We are competing and striving to get to the head of the line by using our cunning, manipulative, egocentric ways to get there, and we're very controllable. Fear is very controllable. Competition is very controllable. Anger and war divides individuals. Now, that is not a way to address a crisis, because the service to self or taking care of the self is the exact thing that enhances the crisis. Because if you and I are all doing the same, if we're all doing the same thing, then a culture becomes more divided. It becomes more disintegrated. It becomes more incoherent. And possibility then is not part of the equation. So the other state of mind, if you can view crisis as a great opportunity brilliantly disguised as an impossible situation, and you have to match the conditions in your environment with a new mind, now we're talking about greatness. Because innovation and creativity and a new way of thinking and a new way of being means that we can't do the same thing from the past. And so in history, cultures that are individuals that overcame their environmental conditions were considered mystics and saints and leaders and charismatic leaders. They were individuals that saw past the illusion of the present reality. When we begin to become innovative or creative, the brain begins to switch. We begin to turn on the forebrain, the frontal lobe, which is really the crowning achievement of the human being, and we begin to ask bigger questions. How can we create a new way of being in a world that's falling apart? How can we begin to create a new system to adapt to these conditions? And I think that people, when they begin to feel empowered by possibility, when they begin to see that the death of the old paradigms means the beginning of a new paradigm, how many people actually believe in the idea that the way you think has some effect on your life? So how many people actually woke up this morning and consciously created a future? You know, the biggest reason why people don't do it is because you don't really believe it's true. You see, if you knew on a gut level that it was absolutely true, would you ever miss a day, and would you ever let any thought slip by your awareness that you didn't want to experience? So your brain, according to neuroscience, is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of your environment. It's a record, an artifact of your past. So if you believe this, then does your environment control your thinking, or does your thinking control your environment? So if you wake up in the morning and you get out of bed on the same exact side as you did the day before, you shut the alarm clock off with the same finger, you slip into your favorite slippers, you shuffle into the bathroom and you use the toilet like you always do, then you walk over to the mirror and you look at yourself to remember who you are, then you get into the shower and you wash yourself in the same routine way, then you groom yourself to look like everybody expects you to look, then you go downstairs and you drink coffee out of your favorite mug, then you drive to work the same way as you did the day before. You see the same people that push the same emotional buttons. You do the exact thing that you know how to do and you memorize and can do so well that you're an expert at. Then you hurry up and rush home so you can hurry up and check your emails, so you can hurry up and go to bed, so you can hurry up and do it all over again. Now here's my question. Did your brain change at all that day? We could say that you were thinking the same thoughts, performing the same actions that create the same experiences, that produce the same emotions, but secretly expecting something to change in your life. So then, as the environment turns on different circuits in your brain, you begin to think equal to your environment. As you see the same people and go to the same places and do the same things at the same time, it's the external environment that's turning on different circuits in your brain, causing you to think equal to everything that you know. And as long as you think equal to everything that's familiar or known to you, what do you keep creating more of? Same life. Same laws still applying to you. You're just thinking equal to everything that you know, and you keep creating more of the same. To change, to truly change, is to think greater than your environment. And every great person in history knew this. Whether it was William Wallace, or Mahatma Gandhi, or Martin Luther King, or Queen Elizabeth I, or Joan of Arc, they all had a vision. They all had an idea, couldn't see it, couldn't smell it, couldn't taste it, couldn't feel it. It was alive in their mind. It was so alive in their mind that they began to live as if that reality was actually happening now. So, can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the event has already happened? Neuroscience says it's absolutely possible. Now your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. It's that simple. And your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's sitting here today, you, has created the present personal reality called your life. The hardest part of all of this, everything we're talking about, is one simple thing: making the time to do it. That's it. Making the time for your precious self to eliminate the people in your life and the things that you do just for a short period of time when you wake up in the morning or before you go to bed at night, and you say, okay, what is the greatest ideal of myself that I want to be today? But listen, I'm not going to get up until I am this person. When you begin to wrestle with your limitations and overcome them, there's so much talk in the United States about self-love. People think self-love is getting a manicure or buying a sports car. That's not self-love, that's pleasure. Self-love is when you're sitting with yourself and you are working on overcoming your hardwired thoughts or beliefs or your emotional propensities that are connected to your past, and you are really working to overcome them. Right on the other side of your pain is freedom. Right on the other side of your fear is courage. Right on the other side of your sadness is joy. It's the same energy, it's just trapped in the body. When you stretch yourself past that point and you break free from the chains of those emotional addictions, the side effect of that is called joy. The body is liberated from that level of mind. When that happens, there's available energy to create with. So when you break through that, you begin to love yourself. You begin to respect yourself, and you begin to love and respect others because you see yourself in them. And now that you're free from it, you can understand them with compassion without knee-jerking in the same way. So the difficulty here is really making the time to do it. And if you began to think about a new way of being and you moved into a state where you said, I'm not going to get up until I am this person. Not only did you memorize it neurologically in your brain, but you allowed the thoughts that you were thinking to become the experience, to the point that your body, as the unconscious mind, began to live in that future reality in the present moment. And when you got up, when mind and body were working together in that state of being, and you said, I'm going to maintain the state of being my entire day, and I don't care. Bring on the challenges because I want to test my greatness. And you did that the entire day. The end of your day, when you finished your day, more than likely you'd have more energy than when you started. The literal translation of the word meditation in Tibetan means to become familiar with. The symbol means to become familiar with. So if you're becoming conscious of or familiar with your unconscious self to the point you're so conscious of your unconscious thoughts, so familiar with your unconscious habits, and so aware of your emotions that you would never let them go by unnoticed by you. There's no chance for you to return back to the old self, to know thyself. And then if you became familiar with a new self because you neurologically fired and wired it in your brain and you emotionally conditioned your body and you were able to do it enough times, sooner or later it would get easier and it would become more familiar to you, and you would be able to move into that state of being. By the way, a new state of being is a new personality, and a new personality is a new personal reality. One of the things about substances is that it actually helps to change chemistry in the brain and body, so there becomes a chemical dependence on it at that point. But the person who wants to change has to want to change. That's the first element. In other words, no one can make you change, but you have to find it in you to really see if this is what you want to do. I've studied people over the last 12 years. Why is it that one person, an old-timer, can look at his x-rays and see a spot on his lungs, and the doctor will say to him, "Hey, George, you know, that's a spot on your lungs. It's nothing now, but if you keep smoking, it will be." And that guy just takes his cigarettes, throws them in the trash, and he's done the next day. How do you explain that? He made the decision, and the decision was an experience, and it began to rewrite his chemistry and his biology. How can a person who moves into a state of religious ecstasy, a state of absolute faith, drink strychnine and not get poisoned by it? It's a decision. It's an energetic decision. It's how powerful the mind really is. People then who actually want to make the decision to change have to make the decision with firm intention. Once you understand the how-to, that you can't use your conscious mind to do this, you have to move beyond the analytical mind. When you understand brainwave patterns, and when you slip into a different state of mind, that it's easier to do it. So most people then, 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old is a set of memorized habits and behaviors that become part of our identity or personality. So 5% of the conscious mind is trying to change 95% of what we've memorized, hardwired, become addicted to emotionally. So the person may want to think positively, but they've been feeling negatively and oiling those programs for the last 25 years. They might want a new life with new conditions, and as they use their mind, conscious mind, to focus on that, their subconscious mind, they've been programmed to feel guilty. That's mind and body in opposition. We have to begin to recondition the body to a new mind. So change isn't hard. It's just that you've got to get the manual to understand how to begin to unlearn and relearn, to break the habit of the old self and reinvent the new self. The latest research in neuroplasticity tells us we're not hardwired to be a certain way for the rest of our lives. The latest research in epigenetics says we're not doomed by our genes, that in fact we're marvels of adaptability and change. So as a person started to contemplate and think about, who do I want to be when I open my eyes? What would it be like to be happy? What would it be like to live a new life? The frontal lobe is looking out into the landscape of the entire brain because it has connections to the entire neocortex, and it's got to resolve the problem. So it starts calling up different networks of neurons that are relevant to the question based on the knowledge the person learns or the experiences that they had, and it begins to seamlessly piece together this new understanding, and that's called intention. And so if you're reading a book about how to become more happy, or if you're reading a book on how to be a leader in your life, where you're studying the process, every time you learn something new, you add new connections to your brains and raw materials for you to imagine even more. The act of mentally rehearsing begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like it's already happened. Now, the brain is typically a record of the past, but the moment we install the neurological hardware, it becomes a map to the future. And you keep doing that, the hardware becomes a software program, which means you start thinking like a genius. You start acting like a happy person because there's no mystery there because you installed the circuits. And then these people didn't wait for their wealth or their health to feel gratitude and to feel empowered or to feel love, a love for life. They began to feel those emotions ahead of the experience, and their body, as the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between the experience and their life that creates the emotion, and their emotion that they're creating by thought alone. The body's believing it's living in the future, in the present moment, and the stronger the emotion that they felt, the more they're going to pay attention to the thoughts they're thinking, and now all of a sudden they're changing their biology from living in the past present reality to living in the future present reality. And I was so intrigued by this process that I went back to school to study neuroscience because it was the answer in the internal process of rehearsing and imagining.